So I was walking around the other day, as I do, and I said to myself, F it, let's do another preview. And now here we are, previewing all of the countries that are gonna play in the biggest sporting event on the planet, the 2018 World Cup in Russia next summer. So out of respect for the order of the alphabet, we're gonna start with Group A. And first up, alphabetically speaking in Group A, is Egypt. Or as I like to call them, Mohamed Salah and 10 other guys. Now after being one of the best teams on the continent for over a decade, which included winning 3 straight Africa Cup of Nations trophies in 2006 and 2008 and 2010, the Pharaohs dramatically and finally qualified for their first World Cup since 1990 thanks to a penalty in stoppage time against Congo, which helped them top the group that also included Uganda and Ghana. So with his 32 goals and 56 caps, Mohamed Salah is definitely the guy to watch. But the guy with the best story on the team is their 44-year-old goalkeeper Assam El Hadari, who has played 156 times for his country and has won 37 trophies during his club career, but he had never qualified for a World Cup. So if he's chosen to go and then plays, he will be the oldest player to ever play in a World Cup at the tender age of 45, which kind of makes me want to lace them back up again. If my country had qualified, which they didn't, so don't get me started, I don't really want to talk about it. Anyway, I hope El Hadari makes the team and then gets to play, because what a fitting end that would be to a great career. You know what I'm talking about, Gigi Buffon? Yeah, I shouldn't be throwing shade at a legend. Anyway, here's my prediction with Egypt manager Hector Couper's defensive style, which has helped them concede more than one goal only once in his 30 games in charge. I really feel like this conservative approach will help them make it through to the next round, as will FIFA giving Russia the easiest group in the whole tournament, which I actually think will benefit Egypt the most. And speaking of Russia, let's talk about the country who automatically qualified for this tournament when then FIFA President Sepp Blatter controversially named them as the host of this event back in 2010, which I believe is very fortunate for them, because I'm not sure they would have qualified otherwise. Especially because they struggled at the Euros last season, which led to them hiring a new manager in Stanislav Cherchesov, who has been called a clown by Igor Denisov, who just happens to be one of Russia's best midfielders. No big deal, because of some of the tactical decisions that Cherchesov has made in the past, which means Cherchesov does not trust his veteran players, or maybe just this one in particular. And his veteran players clearly don't trust him. So, as you would expect from somebody who doesn't want to be challenged, he prefers to play younger players with less experience because they actually listen to him. However, it could all work out if the younger players like Alexander Golovin and the Miranchuk twins can step up and play well, because then the manager's gonna look like a genius, which I'm sure he would love. But causing drama within the group of veteran players never seems to end well, and I can attest to it, I've seen it firsthand. And with the country only playing 3 meaningful games since the Euros, which all came in the Confederations Cup where they were very, very poor, I don't think their home field advantage is gonna mean very much, and I think they're gonna get knocked out in the group stages. But to make the Russians feel slightly better, let's talk about Saudi Arabia, because they are even more of a mess. And you should be writing this down, because they sacked the manager who helped them qualify for their first World Cup since 2006, and then replaced him with a manager who got fired by Argentina during World Cup qualifying this time around because Argentina was underperforming. Then they fired that guy after 5 games because Saudi Arabia failed to show any promise during that time span, and then they replaced him with the former Chile manager who failed to qualify Chile for this World Cup. And honestly, I don't care how good their players are, this instability is going to be too much for them to overcome, and they're going to be 3 games and out, which leaves us with one last team in Group A, and that's Uruguay, who finished second in South American qualifying to Brazil, but they had the second worst defensive record of all the South American countries heading to Russia, so this has to be a bit of a concern, especially since Diego Godin, who's one of my favorite defenders in the world, so it's really hard for me to admit this right now, but I think he might be a bit past it, which means we need to focus on their amazing attack instead, because that's the part of the team that's actually going to win them games, and they are led by Edinson Cavani, who seems to keep getting better and better with each passing year, and Luis Suarez, who can single-handedly win you big games by himself or with his teeth. So barring any funny business, which with Russia in their group is no guarantee, they should top this group of 4 teams, which means they will meet the runners-up of Group B in the second round, which will most likely be Portugal, and then I think they get past Portugal to make it to the quarterfinal. And yes, I said it, stamp it! Though I'm sure Cristiano Ronaldo will prove me wrong again. He does that a lot and kind of irritates me, but I kind of respect it at the same time. And speaking of Cristiano Ronaldo, let's talk about the group that his country is in, Group B, and Iran is up first, who have qualified for consecutive World Cups for the first time in their history. And their manager, Carlos Queiroz, who once managed Real Madrid, Portugal, and who was the right-hand man to Sir Alex Ferguson for many, many years, is the only person to thank for this because he's gotten the most out of the players at his disposal, which is a sign of a very good coach. And maybe even more importantly, he's got them organized, which is clear by the FIFA record they recently set by registering 12 consecutive shutouts in a row, which is just but they're not going to be able to 0-0 their way into the knockout round. So if their 22-year-old star, Sardar Azmoun, who already has 22 goals and 30 appearances, well, if he can't hit the back of the net, which I fear he won't, then Iran could go 2 consecutive World Cups without winning a game. And next up is Morocco, who are the only African nation to not concede a goal during qualifying, which is just, what? That's crazy, especially since they had Ivory Coast in their group, who are always pretty good. But their manager, Hervé Renard, has been spreading his magical touch over African teams for many years, and this time he's helped the Moroccans make it to the World Cup since France 1998. You guys remember that tournament? Maybe, maybe not. However, unlike Iran, Morocco has some players that you might have heard of before, like Southampton's Sofiane Boufal, Juventus's Mehdi Benatia, and Ajax's Hakim Ziyech. But unfortunately, they got drawn into a group with 2 of the best teams in Europe in Portugal and Spain. So I'm not that hopeful about their chances. And speaking of Portugal, the reigning European champions had a very fine qualifying campaign with 9 wins and a loss in 10 games while conceding just 4 goals. But when it comes to international competitions, they seem to like doing things the hard way. I mean, do you guys remember when they finished 3rd in their group in the Euros of 2016 last summer, but then they went on to win it? So don't be surprised if they drop points to Iran or Morocco, but because they have the ageless wonder known as Cristiano Ronaldo, who scored an impressive 15 goals in qualifying, which was second to only Bob Lewandowski's 16, and they have the up-and-coming number 9 Andre Silva, who plays on my career mode team. Not all that much, but he has 11 goals and 18 international appearances in real life, so I think they'll eventually find a way to get second in this group, and then they'll face Uruguay in the next round and then lose in penalties to miss out on the quarterfinals. But maybe they'll win in penalties instead, I don't know. Penalties are a coin flip. Which leaves us with Spain, whose superiority ended in a very disappointing manner in the last World Cup, and who weren't exactly impressive at the Euros in 2016 either, but they had 9 wins and a draw in qualifying while scoring 36 goals and only giving up 3, including a 3-0 win over Italy in a must-win game for both of those countries. So even though they aren't the Spain teams that won the Euros in 2008 and 2012 and the World Cup in 2010, they still have a ton of experience with Andres Iniesta, David Silva, Gerard Piqué, and Sergio Ramos in the team, and lots of promising young players like Isco and Alvaro Morata, and David De Gea in goal. I fully expect them to win the group to avoid Uruguay, but then run into Argentina in the quarterfinals. And given that Leo Messi's legacy is on the line, since this will most likely be his last World Cup at top form, I really feel like Messi's going to be up for it, and so will his teammates, and so Spain's run is going to end in the quarterfinals. And now for Group C, let's start with the country that's also a continent, Australia, who traveled over 155,000 miles to face the likes of Saudi Arabia, Japan, Bangladesh, and Honduras to qualify for Russia. So getting 3 group games relatively close to each other is going to be the easy part for them, but the rest will not, because their coach surprisingly said peace out after getting them qualified, and now their manager position is up in the air. Though I'm hearing that Jurgen Klinsmann could be in the running for the job, and no! To have that dude at the World Cup and not the US would be a kick in my balls. But I'm not sure that Jurgen or anyone else can help the Aussies get out of this group, no matter how much I love the heart and passion that they play with, because I just think that the other teams in their group are better, including Denmark, who finished second in their qualifying group behind Poland with an average of scoring 2 goals a game, which is very impressive, and which included beating Poland at home 4-0, so they have it within them to be a top team. But sometimes it doesn't always seem like they're up for it. Kind of like their best player, Christian Eriksen, because when he's feeling it, like he was when he put on a masterclass against Ireland to help his country qualify for this World Cup, they can hang with anyone around the world. But then there are times they will lose a must-win game at home to Montenegro, and you're like, is that the same team that just crushed Poland? Is that What? How does that even work? So I'm honestly not sure how they're gonna perform in this competition, but my family's from Denmark, and we have a Schmeichel in goal and a Lord up top, so I think, or I hope, we're gonna get out of this group, and then of course, we're gonna lose to Argentina in the round of 16. But that's a conversation for another time. Unless France pulls a France, where they somehow find a way to underachieve on the biggest of stages, which it feels like they've done since they last won the World Cup in 1998 and the 2000 Euros. And I mean, yes, okay, they made it to the final of the Euros last summer, but they lost that final in what I believe is a game they easily should have won over Portugal, given their talent and Portugal's talent, and the fact that CR7 wasn't even on the field, he's being attacked by moths or whatever. But if you don't have the heart to back up the talent, then you don't usually win trophies. And this qualifying campaign, which included drawing away at Belarus and home to Luxembourg, proves that France might not have the mental fortitude or desire to win against teams that lead with their heart. But who am I kidding? Honestly, who am I kidding? They should get through this group in their sleep because they have Griezmann and Pogba and N'Golo Kante and Lloris and Lacazette and Mbappe and Koscielny, okay, maybe not Koscielny, and Matuidi and Varane. It's just a joke how good these guys are. So with a little bit of luck, this France side has the potential to go all the way, but it feels like they have one level to reach before being considered serious contenders. So I think they win their group, and then they're gonna cruise past the second place team in Group D in the round of 16, then beat Uruguay or Portugal in the quarterfinals, and then completely underperform in the semis. That sounds about right for these guys. Which leaves us with Peru, who, if I'm thinking with my head instead of my heart, could knock off my beloved Denmark to get out of the group, because Peru had to fight and scratch to survive the tough South American qualification process, which saw them hold off back-to-back Copa America winners Chile for that 5th and final spot. So they're a hardened group that tends to play its best with their backs to the wall, and given the fact that they only conceded 7 goals in all of 2017, this defense-first mentality, led by their stud defender Luis Advíncula, could serve them well in these tough games. However, even if they find a way to get out of the group, Argentina, who they drew twice in qualifying, will be waiting for them in the round of 16, and I just don't think they'll be getting a draw for the 3rd straight time against them. Sorry, Peru. And I feel like I'm apologizing a lot, but I just want the best for everybody, but I have to be realistic. And now it's time for Group D, or the Group of Messi. I tried to misdirect you by rhyming mess with death, thinking it would work, and that was terrible, it didn't work. So let's just call it the Group of Messi by starting with Messi's country, Argentina, who never saw a final that they didn't want to lose. So much so that you could sense that they really didn't want to qualify for this World Cup for fear that they might actually win it. But maybe, just maybe, they will, because they are due some goals after only scoring an embarrassingly low 19 of them in 18 qualifying games. But with players like Messi and Mauro Icardi, Paulo Dybala, Gonzalo Higuain, and Angel Di Maria in their team, and if those guys actually play to their potential, then I think they will make a very good run at it. But sadly, for Leo Messi and his millions of fans that want him to win a World Cup so everyone can say without bias that he's the best player that ever lived because he proved it for both club and country, he's going to come up short. And he's going to lose in the semifinals. And that's going to be it for Messi ever winning a World Cup. Which leads me to another country that has a ton of talent, but who won't make it as far as they probably should. Croatia, who boasts an incredible array of talented itches like the Ivans, Rakitic and Perisic, Mario Mandzukic, and Luka Modric. But after their excellent World Cup debut in 1998, where they finished in 3rd, they have since failed to make it out of the group stage by only winning 2 out of their next 9 World Cup games. So I'm not sure what happens to them every 4 years, but it seems like their best players don't always play their best when they put on those famous checkerboard jerseys. So maybe that's the problem. Maybe those jerseys are too distracting, which means they're not getting out of the group once again. Yeah, how's that for logic? So let's talk about one of the teams that could finish second to Argentina instead, and that is Iceland, who with a population of 330,000 are the smallest country to ever qualify for a World Cup after topping a group that included Croatia, who's in this group too, which I think is weird and should be illegal, and Turkey and Ukraine to become the favorites of basically every fan whose country didn't qualify for the World Cup like mine, because they have this incredible team spirit that defies stats and tactics and star players, which makes you want to see them do it. They are the ultimate underdogs, like Leicester City a few years ago, and with an average age of 29, which makes them the 2nd oldest team heading to Russia, this group of players has the experience, especially after their good run in the Euros last year, to do something special again. And I think that they will. Unless Nigeria does something special instead, because you can never sleep on the Super Eagles, especially after they beat Argentina in a comeback win 4-2 a few weeks ago, which still has the Nigerian fans buzzing because they have Argentina in their group right now, so their belief in confidence is real. And with players like John Obi Mikel, Victor Moses, Wilfred Ndidi, and Alex Iwobi leading the attack in midfield, this team is going to be a force to be reckoned with if they can keep it together defensively and if they can concentrate on beating the teams that they should beat, like Iceland, because let's be honest, they should beat Iceland, but they never seem to raise their game against the smaller opponents. So we'll see how they do this time around, because if they do, they are definitely going through, and then they would be playing Denmark or Peru in the round of 16, who they could beat, so we could see them playing in the quarterfinals. So don't be surprised if you do, because they definitely have it in them. And now let's head over to the second half of the 8 groups in Group E, which is led by the most successful country in World Cup history, Brazil, who absolutely demolished everyone in South American qualifying by finishing 10 points above second place Uruguay with 41 goals for, 11 against, and only 1 loss in 18 qualifiers, which you have to admit is pretty special. And then you mix in their special players like Neymar, Marcelo, Bobby Firmino, Coutinho, and Gabriel Jesus, among countless others. And in some ways, it feels like the only way they're gonna lose is if they're just not into it that day, not because the other team is doing anything in particular to beat them. And with them drawing, arguably, the easiest road to the semifinal amongst the real contenders, before they would have to face a Spain or Argentina or Germany, they could and should definitely get there at the very least, where they will then have to potentially face a rematch against Germany, the same country that slapped them around 7-1 in the semifinals of the 2014 World Cup, which was super embarrassing for the country and their players and pretty much everybody that identifies as a Brazilian. And that might be too big of a mental hurdle for them to overcome. Maybe. And speaking of maybes, let's get into the fate of the Ticos of Costa Rica, because 4 years ago, they won a group at the World Cup which had England, Italy, and Uruguay in it, and I'm still not sure I know how they did it, other than with heart and determination and their wonderful fans who were always singing no matter where they were. And Keylor Navas in goal, who, despite Real Madrid's relentless pursuit of David De Gea, which has to be insulting to Navas in some way, he continues to show why he's one of the best goalkeepers in the world. And when you have one of the best goalkeepers in the world on your team, anything is possible, especially when you have a team like Costa Rica who knows exactly who they are and what they need to do to be successful. So I fully expect them to find a way yet again to get through their group. So come on, you Ticos! Which means we're left with 2 teams that, fine, could also be second to Brazil, because I'll admit that I'm biased to Costa Rica. And we'll start with Serbia first, who outlasted Wales and Ireland in qualifying with only 1 loss in their 10 games, and who are probably the favorite to be second in this group by all the other pundits, because they have some very talented players on the roster like Nemanja Matic and Alexander Mitrovic, who is definitely better for his country than he is for his club, because I support the club that he plays for, and he kind of sucks for us. And Alexander Kolarov, who seems to have rediscovered his old form with Roma this season, but they too, and I'm talking about Serbia here, had an abrupt coaching change after the coach clashed with the president of the Serbian FA about the players he was or wasn't selecting, and now there's a caretaker manager in charge. And honestly, this is going to impact the team in a negative way, whether anyone wants to admit it or not. And that's just going to have a negative ripple effect, and I think the team's going to suffer because of it. And then the other team that could also get second behind Brazil is Switzerland, because they have some very talented players on their roster as well, like Xherdan Shaqiri, who only seems to score great goals, which is kind of awesome. I wish I was known for that. Or Steven Lichtsteiner and Ricardo Rodriguez, who at their peak are 2 of the best wingbacks in the whole entire world. And Granit Xhaka! You know who he is? No, I can't say that with a straight face, because Granit Xhaka is going to be Switzerland's undoing, because he's going to give a ball away in a bad area, and that's going to lead to a goal or multiple goals over multiple games, or he's going to get a red card, or both. So that second place berth is only possible for Costa Rica or Serbia, and for whichever of those 2 countries that does make it to the round of 16, they're most likely going to play Germany, and that's going to be that. Thank you for coming, and we'll see you next time. And now we head to Group F, which stands for you are to be in the same group as Germany, because the Germans are the favorites, not only in this group, but for the whole tournament. They cruised to the Confederations Cup with their B team, and then they won all 10 of their qualifying games by scoring 43 goals and by conceding only 4, which is a joke. And like France, they have so much talent at every single position, but unlike France, they have a manager in Yogi Love who is a proven winner at the international level and is someone who knows how to handle this amount of talent. So I don't care who they run into at any point in this tournament because they are definitely getting back to the final. But someone else has to qualify from this group too, so why not Mexico? They cruised through qualification in CONCACAF, finishing 5 points ahead of Costa Rica and Panama, while getting to enjoy their rivals, the US of A, eat shit and not make it to the World Cup. Plus, they have Chicharito. Sure, he hasn't scored much for West Ham this season, and that's because of 2 reasons. 1, West Ham sucks. And 2, he's saving all of his goals for this World Cup. And because we know that Chicha is a streaky scorer, I think he's gonna come alive at just the right time, and it'll be just enough to edge out the other 2 teams, Sweden and South Korea. But maybe not. Maybe South Korea is the team to do it, though. They finished second to Iran in the Asian region and have visibly regressed since the start of qualifying, which led to them firing their coach and bringing in their former U20 and U23 boss. It's the same person, which means this same person is going to lean on the players that he knows, which are young players. And a team full of young players, though fun to watch at times, rarely win because you need some experience in your team to balance everything out, which South Korea does have, but it's mainly consolidated into one player, and his name is Heung-min Son, or as you might know him, Sonaldo. But I'm not sure if Sonaldo and his young teammates can compare to the other countries that are battling it out in this group, which leaves us with Sweden, who I thought would never recover as a country once the mighty Zlatan Ibrahimovic retired. But in some ways, they could be better without him because the team is not built around one specific player. Though we could argue, with the emergence of the very talented Emil Forsberg, maybe it should be built around one specific player because this guy can play. So if you sprinkle in the players with some special qualities, with their tactical discipline under manager Jan Andersson, then they are not going to be an easy team to face. I mean, just ask Italy how tough the Swedes made it for them over 2 legs. But for whatever reason, I still see the Swedes struggling to score goals, and you need goals to win games, and you need to win games to get out of your group. So I think Sweden isn't going to make it out of their group. But if it makes them feel any better, Mexico is probably going to play Brazil in the next round, and they're going to lose. And I don't know if that helps, but I'm trying. Also, I'm not sure if it helps my English warm ballers in particular, but the group that they're in, Group G Money, is my favorite group because nothing is going to pump me up more than seeing England not qualify for the knockout rounds when they are in a group that they should qualify out of. And I love seeing England fans get triggered, but let's start with Belgium first, who cruised through qualifying with 9 wins and a draw, which helped them live up to the expectations that come with being labeled the golden generation of Belgian football. Also, despite his failings in England, manager Roberto Martinez has done a good job, in my humble opinion, finding some balance in his team since taking over, and he has instilled some much-needed ruthlessness into the team, which I think we're seeing spill over into some of his players' club teams, most notably with Kevin De Bruyne, who looks as aggressive as he has ever been going forward. And that can only be considered a good thing for Belgium, especially when he has Eden Hazard and Romelu Lukaku and Dries Mertens to combine with, and damn, I would say more, but these guys are so good, and they're gonna win this group pretty easily and then probably face Colombia in the next round unless James Rodriguez pulls out some magic, but I don't think he will. So they're gonna end up being in the quarterfinals against Brazil, and then they're gonna lose that, and then the dream's gonna be over. Kind of like how the dream will be over for England after 3 games. And I only say this because of the insurmountable pressure that these guys are under to win something, which you think they'd be used to since all of them play in the Premier League with all the speculation and pressure. But when they put on their national team shirt, something's just different. And I think it shows. They play more unsure of themselves, and I think opponents know this, which I actually saw firsthand at the last World Cup in Brazil. But maybe it'll be different with Harry Kane leading the line instead of Wayne Rooney and his hair plugs. And if Raheem Sterling continues to be in good form in 7 months' time, and then Eric Dyer and Dele Alli, and fine, okay, fine, they're probably gonna get through because they are much better than Tunisia and Panama. But then I said they were much better than Costa Rica last time around, and look what happened. They sucked. So if it's Panama that pulls off the miracle of getting through, which in some ways I feel like they already did by qualifying for their first ever World Cup, it's gonna be on the backs of their much older squad, which is the oldest in the tournament with an average age of 29.4 years. However, I think they're gonna fall into the category of, we're just happy to be here. So I'd bet a lot of money that they lose a big one to Belgium in the first game of their group. probably because they're going to be a little bit nervous. And then they're going to get a nervy draw against England in game 2, and then with a chance to go through if they beat Tunisia, they're going to draw that one as well, which is going to allow England to go through on 4 points because that's just how England rolls. Which means if you're doing all the calculations and permutations that I'm mentioning in your head, I actually think you're pretty smart. Well, I have Tunisia, who qualified for the World Cup for the first time in 12 years. Though it should be said, they have never gotten out of the group stages before when they did qualify, needing all 3 points in this last group game against Panama as well to go through to the next round. But, like I mentioned before, because both teams cancel each other out, England is going to barely squeak through, which is a shame. I really feel like Tunisia would be a lot of fun to watch when they have nothing to lose. But you know, England's got to England, and then England's going to somehow lose to Portugal in penalties in the knockout round. I mean, Colombia this time around, because I feel like English people are bitter when it comes to their national team, and nothing makes you more bitter than losing in penalties. And finally, it's Group H. And this already feels like too many teams, so why are they considering going to 48? Why? It just doesn't make sense. Not everybody deserves to participate in the biggest tournament in the world. Anyway, let's start with Colombia, who finished 4th in South America behind Brazil, and Uruguay and Argentina, and just one teensy point above Peru, who qualified through the playoffs, and one measly point above Chile as well, who didn't make it to Russia despite having more wins. So it sucks to be you, chi-chi-chi-le-le-le. And yes, I know it sucks to be me as well. I got it. I didn't qualify. I heard it. Pissed. Stop. So despite making the quarterfinals of the last World Cup, which cemented James Rodriguez's status as a global superstar that likes to ride the bench for big clubs, there's no guarantee that they can get there again. However, with the resurrection of El Tigre, Radamel Falcao, who was robbed of playing in the World Cup the last time around because of a serious injury, and the emergence of Davinson Sanchez as a pretty reliable center back despite his age for Spurs after a successful stint with Ajax, and with, in my humble opinion, a very manageable group, I think Colombia are the favorites to claim the top spot, where they would then face England in the round of 16, and we all know who's gonna win that one. P.S. Not England. Then they would get to the quarterfinals, where they will unfortunately once again run out of steam and luck and then have to head home. As will Japan, but not in the quarterfinals, because despite making it to their 6th straight World Cup, which is a huge accomplishment of course, having only 4 wins in their 17 World Cup games is not. And since they were the 4th seed, even FIFA thinks they are the weakest link in their group, but not weak enough to be in Russia's group. So maybe FIFA thinks there is a chance, but only, I'm sure, if Shinji Kagawa was playing like he was 4 or 5 years ago. But he's not, which means Japan, you are not going to be making it out of the group stages. However, Poland will be making it out for one reason and one reason only: Robert Lewandowski, who scored 16 of his country's 28 goals through qualifying. And even though building your team around one player can be dangerous, especially if he's out of form when the tournament starts, or worse, if he gets hurt, like I saw firsthand with Jan Koller in the Czech Republic back in 2006, who actually never recovered as a team after Koller got hurt 20 minutes into the first group game. It is the best formula for success for the Polish team, and they know it. But knowing how well Lewandowski takes care of himself and how much it means to him to have Poland playing in the World Cup, I know he's gonna be on fire. That is until they get knocked out in the round of 16 by Belgium. But before that, straight fire. And now it's time for the final team of the final group, and it's Senegal, who I believe will get second if Lewandowski gets hurt, because in their only World Cup appearance prior to this one, they stunned everyone by reaching the quarterfinals, which included beating the defending champions at the time, France, with their current manager Aliou Cissé being the captain of that 2002 side. So it really feels like things are coming full circle for the country. And with the emergence of Sadio Mane as a consistent force to be reckoned with, I really feel like it's possible for them to do some serious damage in this tournament. But I don't think this team is as talented as the one that made history in 2002, so we're just gonna have to wait and see. So there you have it, the best preview that you have ever watched as someone making predictions about the World Cup is over. So let me crystallize my thoughts, at least about the final, because I never really got there. Brazil and Germany are gonna be in the final, and then Brazil is going to win in penalties. And are you writing all of this down? You should be. Or actually, we have this video as evidence, so you don't have to write down anything. So thank you instead for watching this video. Please hit like and subscribe if you want more of this good stuff. And I cannot wait until after the tournament is over in July so we can watch my reactions to me being right about everything that I said. Later.